What's up, my fellow harmonic traders? Welcome back to Track the Harmonic, your go-to destination for all things harmonic technical analysis. I'm your host, Lord MC. In today's video, we're diving deep into the world of harmonic technical analysis and how it can help us anticipate market movements. If you're new to the channel, we cover harmonic technical analysis here, which is just a method that uses geometric patterns and Fibonacci numbers to identify potential reversals in the financial markets. It's a powerful tool that combines price and time to help predict future price movements. So if you're new to harmonic patterns, don't worry, I do have a Discord community where you can learn more information on harmonic patterns and what they are, as well as interact with other traders. So if you're interested in that, the link to join is in the description box below. We're also going to be taking a look ahead at some key economic indicators coming out next week that could impact the financial markets. Coming up this week, we do have retail sales. This is just a measure of the total receipts of retail stores. Changes in retail sales are widely followed as an indicator of consumer spending. Next up this week, we also have the building permits. This is an indicator of future construction activity. So these building permits show the number of new building approvals issued by the government. This is a leading indicator for the economy because it signals future construction investment. We also have the weekly report and initial jobless claims. This report just helps track how many people have filed for unemployment benefits for the first time. It's a quick and effective gauge of the labor market's health. Last but not least, we do have the earnings reports. We did kick off with earnings season with banks on Friday, so it's going to be very important to see the significance of these upcoming corporate earnings. So these can reflect the profitability of these companies and can help influence their stock prices as well as market sentiment. So it's going to be very important to see how they start reporting with this upcoming earnings season. So if you like this type of content, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss a future video. Having said that, I want to preface by saying I am not a financial advisor. None of the things I say in my videos or anywhere else is ever financial advice, so question everything, do your own research, and come out with your own conclusions. Having said that, let's jump right into the charts. So jumping over to SPY here on the weekly, we currently have this bearish ABCD pattern where at the completion of point D, the following week, which was last week, generated a shooting star, and this week you did have follow through where you came down to test just slightly below the 90 EMA on the weekly. So what can we expect here harmonically? The next target I would be looking at would be the ABCD target there at 508.29. If this loses this level here, it could potentially start a type 1 reaction all the way down to minimum target 1 at 446.37 down the line. Obviously, this is on the weekly chart. This could take some time to play out, so we'll definitely have to see the other time frames to see if volume starts to pick up. So I am going to be coming back to the 2-day chart because I do have a harmonic pattern there, and I'm just going to quickly cover here as I bring in my indicators, as well as the RSI has now come back below 70. The HSI crossed the midline here. Harmonically speaking, when the indicator crosses the midline on the HSI, you can come back to these overbought or oversold conditions. So if this goes to the oversold conditions, right where these green area, blue area is at, that could potentially send it down anywhere below maybe the 21 EMA. So quickly, I just wanted to cover the daily here real quick to see where we're at on the trend. Obviously, SPY has been pushing ever since last year. We're just clearly off the chart, you can just see it was creating higher highs and higher lows. It came and lost the 21 EMA finally, and it also came and retested the 50 SMA ever since it broke out above it over in November. So right now, this is creating lower lows and lower highs. Overall, macro-wise, from the starting point of where this broke out, is this still bullish? We just had a retracement just slightly under 3%, so the market is still bullish in my opinion, but it is breaking the trend potentially here as it is creating lower lows and lower highs. In my opinion, if it loses the 50 EMA SMA, it just confirms that it is going to be in a downtrend and potentially coming down further to maybe that target 1 on the weekly down the line. Obviously, it's too early to tell right now. If I'm going to quickly jump over the 2-day because we do have a bearish harmonic here at play, the 2-day and the 3-day as well. Just let me quickly jump over to the 3-day. It's a little bit more cleaner here. We do have the bearish bat pattern where you're kind of reversing back down. The 21 EMA is right around 504, 505, and then hop at 498.57. So let me bring on my drawings here. I know there's a lot going on, but the next level I would be looking at for SPY, if it decides to lose 510 here, the next level I would be looking at would be the daily here. To lose a 50 EMA here would be at 507, 508, and maybe you come see all the way down to fill that gap around 497.37. So I do have a harmonic level here. I believe it's 498.40 as a level of support. Should it fall below that, the next level I do have is 491. You do have a gap there at 490. Obviously, this is too early to tell to call out these numbers, but we are approaching them as well. So it's going to be very important to see if SPY can hold on to the 50 EMA here. If it doesn't, then I do believe we're going to come back down, and it's definitely going to start switching the trend here soon. Just want to note that for a correction to happen, historically speaking, you want to have around 10%. We are currently only down less than 3%, so I know a lot of people are calling doom and gloom here. The volume started to pick up on the daily here, but in my opinion, in order for this to really go, if you're going to start sending this in the downtrend, I believe you have to lose with high volume on the 50 EMA and SMA. So once we do lose that level, then I'd be leaning a little bit more bearish here for that potential retracement to SPY. If we do have SPY come back down to potentially retrace to 10%, you can see SPY go down to maybe around roughly 470, right at the 200 EMA. So that could make sense. Obviously, the correction could be much needed here, especially after how much SPY has pushed up this past year and since last year. So a correction of 10% isn't anything crazy. It does happen, especially after a push up, the way SPY has been moving and the way the whole market has been moving. So we'll definitely have to keep a close eye to see if SPY is going to keep above this level, or it's going to find support here and just create a higher high. So definitely keep an eye out on SPY. Jumping over to the triple Qs here. So the NASDAQ on the daily compared to the SPY is still in an uptrend, right? It's still creating that channel. It looks like it's just still creating that higher low right now. It could find support above the 50 SMA here where it did test it and just create a higher high if it does find support, obviously. So right now you did test the HSI midline. It did break above it. Now it's testing to see that breakout if it's going to hold or not. If it does find support, then you could see this go to push for a higher high. If we go over to the 2-day, this is a bearish shark pattern on the 2-day where it is finding some resistance below HOP and finding support above OB here. So you are in this range between 450 and 428, just slightly holding support above the 21 EMA where it has found support here. So if the triple Qs decides to lose a 21 EMA with high volume, the next level I would be looking at would be OB here of the shark pattern at the 1.13 retracement at 428.79. Below this level, I do have a next level of support at 422, and then the terminal bar at 391.40, and then obviously it's the type 1 reaction to target 1. To complete that reaction would be at 342.06, just slightly below 200 SMA. Obviously, that's going to take some time to play out, but if it does lose support here below OB, I'd be definitely interested to see if you're going to go for that type 1 reaction on the triple Qs. For the weekly chart here on the triple Qs, you can see that HOP has been resistance here. You had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 attempts to break above HOP here and are not able to do so. So you still are above the 90 EMA. You're still in between that range between 445 and 424 right now. The volume did start to pick up a little bit here. So if you lose HOP here, or if you don't break above HOP here and lose a 90 EMA, you do have the 1.13 of the weekly shark pattern at 424.12. That's roughly just slightly above the 21 EMA on the weekly chart. So what can we expect here, harmonically speaking, if we do break above and find support above the 50 SMA here? I will be looking for this to retrace back up to potentially hop at 450.72. Obviously a break above 450.72 pushes the Qs here higher for that hop on the weekly above 445.47. So first level to the upside would be 445.47, and then the 2-day would be hop at 450.72 should it find support here where the 50 SMA is at. So if you don't, then we could potentially start looking for the triple Qs to finally lose the uptrend here and start maybe creating lower lows and lower highs. So definitely keep a close eye on the triple Qs. Jumping over to the Dow Jones. So the Dow Jones, as we know, tracks 30 different stock companies from different sectors. So we can generalize here with looking at the Dow Jones as a broader market breadth to see if different sectors are starting to show some sign of weakness here for a pullback. And obviously for the Dow Jones, it is breaking the trend here. It has lost a 50 EMA off of increase in volume. So we're going to see if this is going to come down to test maybe the 200 EMA, which is around 366 right now. if you're looking at this for a longer term swing, potentially you are getting some of these indicators to be oversold, right? The RSI is almost reaching 30. The HSI is also signaling some exhaustion here, where you could potentially find support somewhere around here. I will share the 2-day harmonics. We do have some targets there, but you could potentially find a reversal here and generate a potential HSI arrow or dot to the upside as the amplified RSI is oversold as well. We don't have the harmonic to go along with that on the daily, but we are seeing some exhaustion potentially coming in here on the daily. So I'm quickly going to cover over the 2-day harmonic here, which is a bearish shark pattern. As you could tell, you are about to get a 921 crossover here. You have definitely significant volume coming in, but the HSI is signaling exhaustion within the harmonic pattern, which could be at that terminal bar here at 378.12, which it has not yet tested. It did get very close on Friday, but if it finds support here, maybe it does come down below that level, you could generate a potential HSI arrow to the upside here, meaning the reversal could be incoming. Obviously, you would have to have that generate off of high volume to support that thesis. So if it does come back and hold support here at terminal, the next level I would be looking at would be hop at 381, and then obviously to retrace above 381, then you have 386, and then 389, and then you could see potentially 399 down the line. Again, maybe that 400 psychological level there. So on the weekly, we do also have this bearish ABCD pattern, just like SPY on the weekly. We did, at the completion of point D, lose ABCD at 394, and you are currently above, finding support above the 21 EMA here. You did generate an HSI dot. This is the second week in a row with pretty significant selling pressure here. So right now, the RSI also is going towards that midline. The HSI almost in these sold extreme conditions, and that could be just slightly below the 21 EMA, where it could, within the harmonic pattern, the HSI could find support just roughly around 379, somewhere in the 370s, where you could reverse and reclaim these levels down the line if there is volume to support that, right? So definitely keeping a close eye on the Dow Jones, as it is a bit oversold in my opinion, and you could find support here within the harmonic patterns here. More specifically, I'm looking at to see if it loses 378.12. If it does lose that, you could have that 921 crossover, and maybe you could be looking for the 886 of the sharp pattern at 360. The type 1 reaction would send this off the target 1 at 332.44. If it does maintain support here above the terminal bar, then you could see you would want it to reclaim hop at 381.10 and then reclaim 383, and then maybe you could see down the line back to the all-time highs there at 398.82. So definitely keep a close eye on the Dow Jones. Jumping over to IWM here. So IWM, just like the Dow, has lost a 50 EMA here. The Russell 2000 currently has this dragon pattern, bearish dragon pattern, as well as the bearish crab pattern on the daily. So what can we expect here, harmonically speaking? To me, losing the 200 level there was a little bit bearish for IWM to lose. Obviously, it's below that. It's currently at 198.69 off of Friday's close. So what can we expect here? The next level I would be looking at would be the 200 EMA here at 192. Obviously, you complete the type 1 reaction off the bearish crab pattern at target 1 at 188.70. The dragon pattern is calling a little bit more downside, T1 at 184.29. So this looks like you might be coming down here for a potential retest of the 200 EMA, as you also have the 921 crossover to the downside. We quickly jump over to the weekly here. It is finding currently support at the 21 EMA, so it's going to be important to see off the weekly here if this is just creating a higher low before it comes back up for a higher high, right? Volume did start to increase the past 2 weeks. It did lose the HSI midline as well. It is approaching the RSI on the midline, and the amplified RSI is below that midline as well. So what can we expect to the upside? If you're able to find support at these ranges here, you could potentially come back up to 200. Definitely need to reclaim the 200 in my opinion, to reclaim XA here off of the bearish crab pattern, I should say, and then reclaim 203, which is BC of the dragon pattern. If you can reclaim back to those levels, the next level I'd be looking at would be to push above 204, and then maybe you could see for a higher high where 210 and 211 are at hop and OPR Obviously right now it's a little bit more leaning bearish here on IWM, as it is starting to create these lower lows and lower highs. So if it does not find support here, you could see more downside here. The HSI obviously still has a little bit more room to the downside to go to meet these oversold conditions, which could start off that type 1 reaction to minimum target 1 here off the bearish crap pattern. So definitely keep a close eye on IWM. Jumping over to XLF here, the financial sector here. This ETF has been on quite the run for a while. Obviously in the weekly you could even see how crazy it has pushed up here, and this currently is retracing back down with this bearish butterfly pattern on the daily. You had the 921 crossover off of increase in volume. Obviously you're going to have some volume, high volume, especially with all these banks reporting for earnings season here. So it did find support above HOP on Friday at 39.93. Right now the HSI is completely oversold, where if it does find support here above HOP, you may be generating an HSI arrow back up, meaning a reversal is incoming. Obviously that reversal could be, you know, just a retracement back up before it makes an even lower low. Obviously we don't know the strength of that retracement back up, should there be one, right? If it doesn't find support here above HOP, you do have XA as the next target at 38.92, BC at 38.33, and then to complete the type 1 reaction for this bearish butterfly, calling T1 at 35.99. Obviously within the harmonic pattern here, these are reaching these oversold conditions, especially coming close here with the amplified RSI as well. So you could find support. There could be just a retracement, maybe to come back up to test the 9 to 21 EMA here back around $41, where you could reject, right? You could reject, maybe you create that inverse cup and handle, and then you come back for a lower low. So this is breaking the trend right now, currently below the 50 EMA. If we jump over to the weekly here, as you could tell, it just has gone in a crazy run since October, right? With only 1-2 weeks of bearish downside here, if you can even call it that. We do have this bearish shark pattern on the weekly. We did generate shooting star, a hanging man on the weekly last week off of increase in volume follow through for this week. Obviously that had to do with bank report earnings. You're going to see volume pick up, but you did lose the terminal bar at 40.47 here, currently finding support just slightly above the 13 EMA. Should you not find support here, obviously you could come back down to these oversold conditions within the HSI and within the harmonic pattern. That could be anywhere between the 21 EMA all the way down to target 1 there at 35.91 to complete that type 1 reaction. I do think that if this comes back down to these oversold conditions, that sends it towards 35.91 at the test of the 50 SMA here on the weekly. So if it doesn't find support, it did cross the HSI midline right now. You could have a few scenarios play out. You could find some support here, come back up to test that midline. Either you reject or you come back and reclaim that HSI midline, meaning you find that that support, which could be that reversal that's incoming on the daily, as these are oversold conditions on that time frame. So if you don't find support here and that HSI rejects back up off a retest after it loses HSI midline, you could just come to that terminal bar here at 40.47, fail, and then really start to come back down to 35.91. So it's going to be very important to see what XLF is going to do, what the financial sector is going to do, especially we still have more banks that are reporting earnings next week. So definitely keep a close eye on XLF. Jumping over to XLE here, the energy sector currently does have this bearish shark pattern on the daily. You did generate a hanging man on Thursday, and you had high volume sell through on Friday to support that reversal candle, right? You did engulf it as well, so you are engulfing a few closes here on the daily from Friday's sell-off, where it could come back and take it to test hop there at 94.46, where the 21 EMA is at. Right now, you did come down below the 70 RSI, as you were kind of overextended for quite some time. Since March 13th, you broke above it and you stayed above it for almost a month. So the MACD is starting to flip red a little bit. So if XLE does not find support here at hop, where the 21 EMA is the next level to the downside to be looking, it would be terminal bar there at 92.22, the 886 of the shark pattern here at 91.01, where the 50 EMA is at. If you lose that, then obviously you come down for the type 1 reaction to target 1 at 85.60. Should you find support at hop here at 94.46, or you maintain support here above the 13 EMA, The next level I would be looking at would be to reclaim 96 and then $98. And then if it continues with bullish momentum here, XLE could come and test the previous all-time high at 101.52, which was back. The previous all-time high was in July, I believe, 2014. Right now on the HSI here, the HSI is almost reaching these oversold conditions, and that could just take it down there too. If it does go to these extreme oversold conditions, that could be towards hop. So that hop level is where I'd be looking at to see if it holds. If it holds, then you could start looking for a higher high here down the line. Obviously, a break of 101.52 would reach a new all-time highs, and if it doesn't hold, obviously we could start looking for the type 1 reaction off of these targets down the line. If it doesn't hold, a hop. If we jump over to the weekly here real quick, we do have this bearish crab pattern on the weekly where you were finally able to break above 90 here, 90.56 on the XA target. It is calling a new all-time high at hop at 108.63. The RSI, the HSI, and the amplified RSI were all completely overbought here. Obviously, if we turn on the harmonic sequence indicator here, which is also generating 9 candles, meaning that a reversal could be incoming, and you started to print that off of this weekly close, right, for a potential reversal back down. It could come back down all the way just to test the 90 MA here at $92, or maybe even just test the breakout here at XA at 90.56, where it did find some resistance here, right? You did generate the pattern here at point D. You came back down to 82, try to reclaim 90 in January, and then just kind of hovered around here in between that range. You weren't able to be successful here in September. You came back down, held support above 82.50, and then finally you broke out of it. So if this is going to come back down to retest, and if it does find support at XA, then you could start seeing this push towards the previous all-time high and then hop at 108.63. Should you fill 90.56 here, if it does come all the way down here, then the next level I would be looking at would be 82.51. So definitely keep a close eye out on the energy sector, as right now crude oil futures are also pushing towards almost that $90 barrel. So we'll see if this whole war talk also increases or accelerates the energy sector. So definitely keep a close eye on XLE. Jumping over to Apple here. So a few things are happening here with Apple with the harmonic indicators here. The harmonic patterns are generating some bullish harmonic patterns. I'm going to quickly cover here a few that it does have on the daily, where it did generate basically the bottom here on Apple. So you did have this white swan here calling at the completion of point D. You came all the way down to PT1 and then PT2 here, where you retested the 200 EMA here at the high there at 178.36. Obviously, this is high volume. You haven't had this much high volume since back in mid-March. So volume is starting to pick up on Apple here. So what can we expect here harmonically speaking, as I bring out the other pattern that also generated on the daily on Wednesday the 10th here. If I just quickly bring over the dragon pattern. The dragon pattern also generated here, where it's calling PT1 there at 180.181, right just slightly below the 200 SMA there. So if it does come back to test that level here and find support, the next level off the dragon pattern would be 196.36 down the line. Obviously, this could take some time to play out. The HSI did cross that midline, still has plenty of room to go to these overbought extreme conditions, as well as the RSI. So that could roughly be around where the 200 SMA, maybe where that PT1 is at as well. I also want to quickly bring over the other indicator here, where the HPC indicator is also did generate this this bat pattern here at the completion of point D. It's just at the same levels at the completion of point D where the dragon was at and at where the swan was at. So there's a bit of confluence here with the harmonic indicators calling for a reversal at the completion of point D, where it's coming for those, what I like to call the scalper's dream, for the type 1 reaction, and maybe even better for the type 2 all the way to target 2 here off the bat pattern, which is calling at 187. As you could tell here, target 1 off the bat pattern was at 179.53. You kind of didn't test that, came close. So if you do reclaim 179.53 off the bullish bat pattern, the next level up, like I said, would be 181 off the dragon, and then target 2 at 187.20, which would be more ideal here if it does go to these overbought conditions. That could really send it towards target 2 before maybe a retracement. If you are not able to break above target 1 at 179, specifically the 200 EMA was resistance on Friday, the next level you could come back down would be BC here at 174.16. You are also approaching the 921 crossover to the upside here. Should that cross, and you see volume pick up, maybe you could start seeing that confluence towards these targets to the upside. If you fail and you come back down to BC, you could come back to retrace down to 172, and then 169 here is two targets here off of the dragon pattern as well as the bat pattern for a retest of XA at 169.54. Losing that, you come to OPR and then hop at 160.50, 160.88. So right now, Apple does look a little bit bullish after obviously been in a downtrend for quite some time. Maybe it is starting to find some reversal here to the upside. I do have major targets it needs to reclaim. That's more specifically 183 and then 188 down the line. Obviously, if it doesn't reclaim those, then the next level I'd be looking at for a major key level of support would be all the way down to 166.25. You lose that, then you come down to 156.74. So definitely keep a close eye out on Apple. Jumping over to Microsoft here. So Microsoft currently closed on Friday at 421.90. Couple things here with Microsoft. You do have a bearish dragon pattern on the daily as well as ABCD pattern as well. So right now I'm looking more so at the dragon pattern because it is respecting OPR there at 427.24 and OB here at 418.13. So it is in this trading range between 427 and 418, as it does not know what it wants to do here. I do think that if you are able to break above 427, it could be very bullish for Microsoft to test new all-time highs. If you lose 418, you can come back down to the 50 EMA around 413, maybe test ABCD there off of the ABCD pattern on the daily here at 406.71. If you fail that, then you complete the type 1 reaction off the dragon pattern, which is calling T1 at 391.74. Right now the HSI is finding support, or excuse me, it did fall below the HSI midline. So if it does not reclaim that midline, then you can maybe see 418.13, the 886 off the dragon pattern. Losing that, then you can start seeing maybe it comes down for the type 1 reaction at PT1. Should it find support here, maybe it reclaims the HSI midline, the next level I would be looking at here for Microsoft would be to reclaim 423 and then 427. Above 427, then you have a new all-time high at 433.87. If we go over to the weekly here, the weekly still looks pretty good here. So it looks like it's in an uptrend, just creating higher highs and higher lows. Still no indication. You're just kind of flatlining now on the HSI within the harmonic pattern. Obviously this chart pattern is way above hop here, so it could just be consolidating here, waiting for the next leg up or the next leg down. Still need a little bit more confirmation here, as it looks like for the most part since the middle of March here, where it did break above 418, it's just been in a range that 427 to 418 range, so call it a $10 range. So we'll see what Microsoft does here. So below 418, I would lean a little bit more bearish to break this trend. It's still creating higher highs and higher lows on the daily. Above 427, then it just creates a higher high. So definitely keep a close eye on Microsoft. Jumping over to Amazon here. So Amazon did retest the previous all-time highs at 188.65, and it actually created a new all-time high on Friday where it did close at 189.05. Obviously, it failed to make a higher high there, but it did come back down to test almost a 90 EMA here. So what can we expect here? Harmonically speaking, we don't have anything on the daily. We do have this ABCD pattern, but this is way overextended of a hop, which in my opinion is invalidated. So we do have a new pattern that generated here on the 2-day chart here off the shark pattern. So this is the bearish shark pattern. You did generate an inside bar off of low volume. Obviously, this volume should complete on Monday, right? We have one more day here for this candle to complete, so that volume could increase or it could just decrease. We obviously have to wait till Monday to see how that closes. So right now it is generating that HSI arrow, which could mean that a reversal is incoming, as the HSI was completely overbought. The RSI was completely overbought, I should say, the HSI as well, and the amplified RSI. So if you are finding resistance there at the terminal bar at 187.34, the next level I would be looking at would be 183. The 21 EMA, where it has come down tested below here and during January, then that's at 177. Below that, then you come right where the 50 EMA is slightly above at the 886 of the shark pattern at 166.55, where there is a gap to fill all the way down to 160. Target one is calling 135.60 down the line. If we also go to the weekly here, something that's very interesting and finally crossed here was that golden cross here on the SMAs, right? So the 50 crossed over to 200 SMA. Obviously, this is in an indecision candle on the close, but it is finding support at XA at 182.45. So if this is not a lagging indicator, most of the time these crossovers are lagging indicators, but if it's not, and it does still have more upside, the next level for the bat pattern that's calling here a hop for the type 2 return to hop would be at 194.97. If you're looking at the HSI on the weekly, obviously you can see that it still has more wiggle room to the upside. So maybe it comes towards hop, maybe it goes above hop to a $200 psychological level where it finds resistance, and then you maybe down the line see the retracing back to potentially target one at 142.43. Obviously, right now Amazon looks pretty strong here, so we'll definitely have to keep a close eye to see if there's any indication that it does want to reverse. So keep a close eye on Amazon. Jumping over to Tesla here. So Tesla currently has this bullish currently on the 1 day. It was a bit bullish to start off the week where it almost tested 180, but ultimately failed and closed the day on Friday at 171.05. So what can we expect of her Tesla harmonically? I quickly just want to cover the 21 EMA as it is the level to watch out for, as it has been finding some resistance here back in late March, and now just recently was a fake breakout on Tuesday. So what can we expect here for Tesla? This could have just created on Tuesday a lower high, and if it does come back down to these levels, you could create a lower low and maybe come back down all the way to hop at 145.61. As I bring on my drawings here, I do have a few levels of support again for Tesla. So if it doesn't climb back up, the next level of support would be 167.98. Below that, there's another one at 164.67. Obviously, breaking this could potentially get that lower low and even come back to maybe the entrance of the gap there, because we do have a gap at 154.70, and that gap gets closed around 146.35, where just hop is slightly below that. So for Tesla to to reclaim these levels of resistance here would definitely be a break above 174.44 and then 177.12, where you could test maybe XA there. To get above XA, in my opinion, would maybe reclaim some of these bullish indicators here for harmonically speaking on Tesla. There is a gap there at 186. If I quickly jump over to the weekly, there is a bullish Gartley, right? So as I clear on my drawings, our Gartley is being resistance there at the 90 EMA on the weekly. So the weekly EMA is calling for XA at 183.81. If you're able to reclaim that level, then you can see an attempt at the 200 EMA there at 199, that psychological level at 200, where it did find resistance a couple times here back in early February. So right now, Tesla, if it finds resistance here at the 90 EMA, you could come back for that lower low, where hop is also calling on the weekly at 145.61. The HSI did cross the midline, so it is trying to maybe reclaim these levels, but it still need a little confirmation that volume on the weekly that we got was off of decrease in volume. So still Tesla having a little bit of a hard time breaking these levels, but it is also finding support at these lows here. I do believe that there is a lot of support here, so if this is going to break, you're going to have to do that to the downside with volume. So if the bears are going to step up to lose this level, they have to bring in that volume. So definitely keep a close eye out on Tesla. Jumping over to Google here. So Google on Friday closed at 157.73. It did also create new all-time highs. So what can we expect here for Google harmonically speaking? You have a couple of harmonic patterns here. You do have the bearish deep crab, where the completion of point D here, you are finding support above XA, and it looks like it wants to attempt hop there at 163.29. Obviously, this on the daily here, Google is just creating higher highs and higher lows. If it does find some resistance here, maybe that shooting star that formed here on Friday picks up with volume, you could come back to test XA at 154.21, roughly where the 13 EMA is at. Below that, the next level of support would be around 151, and then you obviously have a gap to fill all the way down here to 143 and change. And that would complete almost or retest the target one there, which would complete the reaction, the type 1 reaction on the bearish deep crab. So right now the HSI is still above the midline, and it is approaching the midline to see if it finds support above it. If it does, and then you cross that to the downside, you could maybe come see towards that type 1 reaction down the line. On the weekly, if we go over to the weekly, we do also have some harmonic patterns here. We have the bearish shark as well as the bearish white swan, all going for their type 2 returns to hop and OPR. So right now you can see the strength here in Google, continuation with buying pressure, and the HSI still got room to the upside, as well as the RSI and the amplified RSI. So the Google on the weekly is calling for hop at 161, and the White Swan is calling for 162.91 OPR. So confluence there with almost that 163 target on the daily. If it does not find support here, then the next level to the downside would be 153. Below that, then you have 143, and then to complete the type 1 reaction, the type 1 reaction off the White Swan to target 1 at 140.95. So right now, in my opinion, there's still a little bit more strength to the upside. I think Google may still want to push slightly. The HSI on the weekly is indicating more upside here potentially. So, and that could be towards that new all-time high on that 163 range. So if it does find some volume coming in again, that's where I would probably see if there is going to be resistance, where you could potentially start coming back down, as the indicators here, these harmonic indicators, would be overbought. So definitely keep a close eye on Google. Jumping over to Meta here. So Meta continues to make new all-time highs. It did create new all-time highs, and it did close on Friday at 511.90. We don't have a harmonic pattern currently on any of the time frames here, the micro time frames. There's none on the daily through the week. We do have some on the micro, but I wanted to just cover here just what I see on the charts here. It is currently finding support just above the 21 EMA. That 21 EMA is what I would be looking at for this to finally lose, because it has found support slightly above it. So if it finally comes back down to that 504, 505 range and it loses it, the next level I would be looking at would be to retest the 50 SMA there at 489, 50 EMA is at 480. If we go over to the weekly real quick, you do have, what's interesting here is that the RSI obviously is coming back down to below 70 potentially here. The interesting thing about the HSI here, though, is that it is going down to these oversold conditions. As crazy as that sounds, even though it looks extremely overbought here, within the harmonic indicator could be signaling that you could come back down for that retracement to these oversold conditions, these oversold extreme conditions at the 9 EMA, which would be around 493, where it could find support, right? The last time it tested the 9 EMA, it found support, and you could find support here, generate a potential HSI arrow, which would indicate a reversal back up to potentially make a higher high. That higher high I have would be at 567.41 down the line if it does retrace back up with volume. So definitely keep a close eye on Meta. I do think Meta is a bit strong here above the 21 EMA, so keep a close eye on Meta. Jumping over to NVDA here. So NVIDIA was a bit bullish on Wednesday and Thursday. It did reclaim some levels here as I bring up my drawings. One of those levels I was looking for was 894.14, where you did close above it with some good volume here. Unfortunately, on Friday you came and lost that level. So anytime you break above 894, I should say, like you did back here, you go towards that 970. You did it again here as well. Unfortunately, this is not the case for Friday, where you did close. It is an inside bar here. It did close at 881.86, just slightly above the 21 EMA here. So what can we expect here, harmonically speaking? We don't have a harmonic pattern on NVIDIA. So one thing I'm going to be looking at here would be the HSI. It did cross the midline. It's currently above it. We'll see if that actually holds. If it doesn't and you come back down, then you can see maybe that attempt to close that gap there, as you did come back early Tuesday to test the entrance of the gap, but did find support on the weekly. What's interesting here on the weekly is you did have that HSI arrow. You had to follow through the last week, right, with similar volume, and now you had almost similar volume here. You had 208 million volume on the week of March 25th. The week of March 1st, you had 209, and then this week we had 207. So what looks to me here is especially the last 2 weeks here, it is finding support here at this 881 range. So if it's going to lose that level, the next level I'd be looking at would be that 843, and that would be the entrance of the gap again. And maybe if it loses that, then you fill this gap. Right now, NVIDIA is a bit strong here, in my opinion. It is finding support here above the 21 EMA, which is what you want to see if this is going to reclaim these bullish levels here at 894. Crossing that would be bullish back up to 970. We also have to pay attention to what TSM is going to report earnings. I know they released some numbers early with their quarter earnings there, where they did report an increase. So if TSM does report even more bullish earnings this upcoming week. NVIDIA could have there could be a sympathy play there where you could have potentially pricing in NVIDIA to have good earnings. So definitely keep a close eye on NVIDIA, because if the AI sector starts to push back up again, then that could definitely move the markets back up. So keep a close eye on NVIDIA. Jumping over to Netflix here. So similar to how Meta looks in the chart, Netflix also has the same thing in my opinion. It is finding support above the 21 EMA, where it tends to find support just like Meta, and it is creating higher highs and higher lows. So very similar in the charts here. So this, again, I will be looking at the 21 EMA to see if it finds support. If it doesn't, then I'd be looking at a retest of the 50 SMA at $600 and change. The 50 EMA there at $594 and change. Below that, you obviously have a couple gaps to fill. But if it does find support above the 21 EMA and it reclaims 635, then you could start looking for a higher high towards $700 and change down the line. If we go over to the weekly, you can see that it did generate a hanging man. If the HSI is an indication that it wants to go to these oversold conditions towards the extreme levels here, that could be anywhere between the 9 EMA at 604 all the way down to the 21 EMA at 550. As you can see, Netflix is trying to reclaim hop there at 630 from a previous pattern here above hop. Then you have that previous all-time high at $700.99. So definitely keep a close eye on Netflix, as it is finding some support and strength above the 21 EMA. But if it does lose these levels here below the 50, it can get pretty nasty to the downside for Netflix. So definitely keep a close eye on that. Jumping over to Bitcoin here. So I mentioned last few videos where we did generate this bearish dragon pattern on the daily. That's a level that you would definitely need to reclaim, and to stay above for this to continue pushing even higher would be to reclaim 69,000 and then pass 72k here at BC. It did try to do that. It's been trying to break above 69k. It did get close to breaking above 72,000 over on Monday. Ultimately failed, and is still finding some weakness there to break above that target, where you did have an increase in volume pressure, obviously off of today's news and the whole war talks with Israel and Iran. This accelerated and finally lost the 50 EMA there. So that's the level that I was watching now for. As I mentioned in my previous video, if you draw a trend line from the dragon pattern, your entry point should be when you take point A to point C here. The entry point would have been here at that breakout, the breakdown of that trend line. So, and it did accelerate with volume. So that volume, that breakdown to the downside is supporting because of the increase in volume. Obviously, we want to see if there's more continuation to come down to test PT1 at 57,700. If we do come back down there, the HSI will be oversold, as well as the amplified RSI, and maybe even the RSI. You could just have a test of PT1, find support there, and then go for a reversal. If you generate that HSI arrow off the HSI extreme oversold conditions, then you could look towards a push back above 69k and maybe even reclaim BC there, and then see the new all-time high at 77k. If we go over to the weekly, I also mentioned that that level here is a level of resistance at 69k for the time being. You did generate an HSI dot off of increase in volume. There's 22 hours left for this to close. The HSI crossing that midline. The HSI in the amplified RSI also coming back down here. So the RSI is finally below 70. So we'll see if that comes back to retrace to the 13 EMA, which is around 59k. The 21 would be calling at 54. I'm specifically just looking to see what happens here if it does come and test PT1 at 57,700. Below that, you could either two scenarios. You could just consolidate between that 50 EMA, which is roughly around 64 and 57,000, and then wait maybe for the next leg up or the next leg back down, and that would push it towards the 200 EMA at 49k. The dragon pattern is saying 38k at PT2. I'm not sure about that just yet. We do have the halving coming up as well. So from historically speaking, anytime the halving happens, prior to the halving, you do have some bearish downside move before it finally starts to get bullish back again. So obviously different scenarios, different situations with the whole ETFs that were approved here. So big money, smart money here, big institutions could also play a different role here with the whole halving situation, and see how controlled that can be now that these spot ETFs are on the table. So definitely keep a close eye on Bitcoin. Having said that, guys, that's all I have. So if you like this type of content, please consider giving the video a like. It does help me out, and to further incentivize you guys to watch these videos and to like these videos, I am going to start trying something new here starting next week. So if you want to participate in this, make sure you comment below your favorite ticker, and I will at random pick out one comment here with your favorite ticker, and I will cover it in my next weekly analysis video. Obviously, before I say anything about that, it is my personal own opinion analysis, and they should not be taken as literal. Obviously, you have to make your own conclusions and make your own analysis. Having said that, I do have some strict rules here. I don't do any penny stocks, so please do not comment any penny stocks below. Having said that, I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. I will also be streaming next week from market open to market close, Monday to Friday. So if you want to catch me streaming, I will be streaming on Twitch. So link to my Twitch is in the description box below. Having said that, I hope you have a good weekend, and I will see you guys on Monday. Take care, everybody, and peace.